There's something interesting happened today. I actually sent a note to OMB and to somebody else about it. Wendy did something that so few people do in research in this city. It was just completely refreshing, and then the semantic talk reinforced it. So often we write reports about things, but we never implement it. But this financial services ISAC thing is kind of drinking your own champagne. Does it really work? Can we actually do it? And then you saw how you can take an idea. Anybody can write a paper about how you should do something, but when they do it for you, it makes a big difference. So thanks. Anyway, so this is a talk about a problem that all of us have heard forever. I first heard it loudly do you remember the IA symposiums? Some of you were still at NSA. They were big. They weren't as big as the press, but they were big. And at the end of the hall, if you went down there, there was a seniors program for the general officers, 25 or 30 of them. And at the last one, actually, there was a chart that was shown. And the chart had that Ed Giorgio helped put together that showed where the real shortages were in cybersecurity skills. But at the bottom, it had a quote which made everyone in the room ask for a copy. Everyone in the room asked for a copy. And the quote said, "In the next war, the tanks will be people." Tanks were a big part of World War II, tanks and planes. What they're saying, and I don't think anyone will disagree right now, is if we lose the people war, if we don't put out the numbers of people that China and Russia and other countries are putting out at the top, we don't win the next war. So you might disagree, but if you agree that matters, and if you want it, just proof, any of you know Brian Krebs, the writer, Washington Post writer? He did a wonderful article in June about why Russia has so many hackers. And the reason is that they've been training people in the foundation since 1985. They have 60,000 people taking an advanced test in the stuff you need to know to do advanced cyber every year, passing it. They have 70,000 people taking it. You know what we test? Isn't this cool? How do we do it ethically? We do a whole lot of things. We don't ask people to learn how to do it, hands-on. So who's going to win the next war? Anyway, that's what this talk's about. And it's fun, because for 24 years I've been working on this problem. I never had a positive answer. And just in the last 6 months, out of some other parts of the world, we started to see the pieces. I feel like the Apple engineers who, in the 90s, who saw that screens were getting smaller, and batteries were getting better, and radios were getting better, and they were thinking, somebody's going to put this together into a product that's going to change the world. That's the way I feel about this, but we don't know how these pieces will come together. I figured I'd show it to people who are the smartest people in the field, and maybe some of you will come through with that. I just went forward. No slides? Okay. Is this voice controlled? I like it. We're going to take a 7,000-mile trip in about 30 minutes. We're going to start in the desert in the UAE. We're going to move to England. Then we're going to come here. All of this has happened very quickly. Let's go ahead to the next slide. Is that really how you do it, or I push the button? Oh, okay. Cool. So the UAE had a little problem. They were getting killed by a neighbor. You might guess who the neighbor was. They came to Mike McConnell, and they came to Dick Clark, and they said, we need our own NSA. Some of you got involved in all of that. And that was kind of hard, because they didn't have the basic talent that had already done it, and they didn't want to bring Americans and Pakistanis in to run their cyber stuff, although they kind of had to do that at the beginning. But they wanted to build their own. And the first thing they did was they sent everybody to college in America. They sent out 40 people to college in America, and the kids came back from college in America, and the guys in the UAE said, hey, they're really good at describing the problem. So they wanted to train people to solve the hard problems, their own people now. So this is a national, they consider it an existential issue. National problem. They wanted to do that. They wanted to find talented adults who could be trained. Those are two different things. A lot of people think training is the thing. It's not. Finding the people to train that are the right people and training them is the thing. And that's kind of their separation. And the third is, can we find kids who we can build a pipeline for? And oil was $100 a barrel. So you know when somebody has a really bad problem and unlimited money, they actually do come up with fascinating solutions to things. So I want to give you the bottom line. This is the director of the agency talking. They're called Cyber Falcons, the output. He says, these are my go-to people on every hard problem, and my division directors are screaming for more. So whatever he did worked. Is that fair? All right. So what he did is he did something called an academy. And it was the first time we'd ever done it. He said, I want my people to learn everything you can teach them in 4-year courses and 4-year certifications in 12 weeks. Any of you think that's possible? I mean, most of you took 12 weeks to get through one, right? And he's going to do it heavy. And he wants full-day labs, all the net wars stuff, the whole thing, all right? He wants sort of these people out with those skills, proven with the GX certifications. Okay, so how do you pick the people to go into the class? Well, you build a talent test. And the old talent tests, all the military talent tests, are basically skills and smarts tests. So skills and smart tests are great if somebody already has the skills. What they miss is the people who could be great but don't have the skills yet. And what the guys did, and the guy who built this was actually a CTO at Sophos. His software is on 150 million computers right now. His name's James Line. So he's quite a good software person, quite a good security person. He built this test that measures whether or not you're like the people who are good at this. You're not good at it yet, but are you like the people who are good at it? He calls it psychometrics. And so up and down is your psychometrics, left to right is your skills. So you notice there's almost no one in the lower right, which is logical. People who try it and aren't any good at it quit. So you're going to have a left lower, a left upper, and this is actually the first class. In the way, this is not a simulated chart of something. This is the chart. How come those people in the lower left got in? Who are they related to? Okay, so, but what was wonderful, and for me, specificity is as important as sensitivity. Sensitivity is, does it actually find the thing that works? Specificity, does it find the thing that doesn't work? And 4 of those people in that lower red failed in the first 10 days, and no one knew who they were, so there wasn't that people wanted them to fail. So that's specificity. That says, if they're in the lower left, ask them to go into another field. Don't spend your money trying to train everybody in the world. But notice there are more people in the upper left than there are on the upper right. And that's true of everywhere except Maryland within 200 miles of here. Or, 40 miles. Right there, here we actually have almost equal upper right and upper left because you've had so much time to play. But you go west of here 100 miles, not a chance. It looks like this chart. So you've got a wonderful environment, but it doesn't look like the rest of the world. So the question is, how do you get the green guys to be good? You know, by the way, they ran some tests. I'll show you in a minute. If you take the upper right, you can make them into superstars. It's why all the bad colleges have some great teams, because they found 3 people who just were amazing, who did it all on their own. They took no courses, but they were phenomenal. And so you found them. But there just aren't enough of them. And that's what the cybersecurity business has been, upper right. People found themselves. They got into the business. Somebody discovered them. Nobody tried to build a pipeline. So the question is, how do you get from left to right? This is Alan Parrish's word, the wall. Alan runs cybersecurity education at the Naval Academy. And he talks about getting the naval, the first-year people in. He has all of them for cyber. And he wants to talk to them about Matt Bishop stuff. Secure coding. If anybody ever do secure coding, what was the first thing you talked about as the error that you fixed? Buffer overflow, exactly. So, and he says, so all these kids are in the room and they're starting to look at me strangely because I'm talking about buffer overflows. And he says, he figured out that every one of them had to take chemistry, so they know what a buffer is. No one had to take computer science because it's not required to get in the Naval Academy, so they don't know what a buffer is. So if he starts talking about buffer overflows, what happens? It's like a doctor who doesn't know anatomy. So he's stuck. He can't teach you how to be a surgeon if you don't know anatomy. And it turns out there are 4 or 5 things that are anatomy, not medicine, but anatomy in cybersecurity. And they're things like how the computer works internally, how the stack works, how you do things to the stack, Windows, networking, Linux, programming, encryption. It's not security. It's just the foundations. And you who have those skills know how much better you are than the other people. You don't say it to the other people because they hate you. But you know how much better you are, and you know that's why you're better. It's not because you're better on the cyber side. It's because you know how to write code that writes code, right? I mean, security isn't really that hard once you know all the foundations. If you don't know the foundations, security is impossible. And the quote at the bottom is my favorite one. I won't tell you who it is, but he was talking to Rob Konaki in the White House. He's the CISO of one of the biggest companies in the world. He said, we've stopped hiring anybody with a cybersecurity degree unless we can prove they have these foundations, because without those foundations, they're useless. Okay, so how do you get people the foundations? And so I'm going to go to, we're back to so the UAE used the test to find them. They built the foundation program, a course on the foundations before the training, and it worked. But how do you get the kids? They built a game. Again, James, the same guy, built this. They built a game that has, in those days it had 13 layers, now it has 34 layers. A kid is a cyber protection agent. She goes in and solves a problem, given a problem, real world cyber problem. Solves it, feels good, has another problem, and keeps going and going and going and going. And you might say, gee, that's boring. Well, it turns out to about 80% of the world, that's boring. To about 20% of the world, that's heaven. All the people who hate you lecturing to them, hate me lecturing to them, and just want to do it, you know those people? So the people who love it, turns out in the first 30 minutes, you separate the entire world into the ones who are going to love this stuff, the ones who are going to hate this stuff. Okay. So this is the game. I'm going to make 4 or 5 statements about it. It motivates, it measures aptitude, it measures attitude. That's from, who is this Secretary of Defense C-cubed I? Bob Butler. Bob Butler says it measures attitude. He was talking to the governor of Texas before the governor picked it up. And he said, this thing finds the people who are going to work their butts off to solve the problem. He calls that attitude. But you know who those people are. You built an organization around them, right? Okay. So, and it's all experiential. And my favorite story that James told, he had a dinner. He came over to the United States, the U.S. The White House was there. DOD was there. DHS was there. NSF was there. All the main names you see on TV were there. And he gave this talk, and he talks about this 9-year-old who came. Remember I showed you the camps? Back a slide. The 510 camps. The camps are for 16, 17-year-olds. One of the 17-year-old brought her 9-year-old sister because she couldn't, her mom was doing something that week. And her mom said, you're just going to camp. Take your sister along. And so his sister was there completely bored. The second day, they got the sister a computer. The third day, the 9-year-old was showing her 17-year-old sister and her friends how to debug Python code. And the weekend before, Python was a snake. So just think about that, 9 years old. I'm not saying it's for 9 years old. I don't want to give the kids the guns. But this is an important concept that you don't have to be old to be good at this stuff. Okay, so lessons from the UAE. Bottom line is CyberStart can find talent. It actually can. And it separates the people who think they're good at it from the people who are good at it, which is really important in our field. It enables remarkable independent learning. So there's no lecture. The kid never was lectured about anything in Python, just given problems. And she has this little booklet that comes with it, online booklet. She has to go look things up, which is the way she lives her life, right? You go look on YouTube, you go look in Google, and you find out how to do things. That's what she did. So she learned how to write Python. She learned how to debug Python. Took her almost a day. For a 9-year-old, that's slow, but because the kids move fast. But anyway, the academies can produce effective technical talent in months. The reason that's important is at the beginning of World War II, we didn't have enough pilots. And we had to create pilots in a big hurry, right? Do you remember reading about that? We killed 30,000 people creating them in a big hurry, but we created enough people to win a war. And it was hard. It is possible the United States could get into a situation sometime in the next months or years when we need a lot of good people in a hurry. We're not there right now. People argue about whether we're there right now. But if we do, we now see a way to do that. You can actually take people. You got to kill them. in terms of the amount of work, but that's what you did with pilots, and it was worth it. Really, God bless us, it was worth it. So you may have to beat them up, but if you've got the talent, the key is you have to get the people who like that stuff. If you put somebody who doesn't like it in there, they'll ruin the whole class. They'll just hurt you. And last one is only the top talent can excel without first mastering the basics. That was the breakthrough for all of us. That was the thing nobody at SANS understood, because we always got the people after they were in security, because SANS picks them up after they're in. We never had to start them from scratch. So we didn't know how impossible it is to teach anybody cybersecurity if they don't know Linux and they don't know Windows and they don't know, I mean, it's just silly to try to do that. Okay, so let's go to the United Kingdom. Now there's teachers, now they've seen what the UAE did. This is the big guys in the United Kingdom, and they know James, because James, this guy from Sophos, is the go-to guy for GCHQ, so it's all family. And so they start using this thing. They're testing 30,000 kids. Notice there's still nobody in the lower right, and you got some more up in the upper right. But that's the same test. It's actually the third generation of the same test. They tried an upper right one in the UK. And I'm not going to go through all of it. 31 people got in. But look at the yellow. The average score on the middle yellow was over 90% on GCIH. Those of you who've taken how hackers break in and how you stop them and how you do incident handling, which is GCIH, know that it is really hard to get over an 80 on that test. So if the average score was 90, that means when you grab the upper right, you can do wonders with them. All right? So, but that's not the big question. That's the upper right. What about the upper left? So the UK decides to call James on it. And he said, we're going to make you take 50 people who have never worked in IT or cybersecurity, bartender, cop, journalist, psychiatrist. That was interesting. The police officers, 18 to 60 years old. It wasn't 12 weeks, it was 10 weeks. But we're going to make you see if you can actually, not train them. That's what the governor of Rhode Island says, we've got to stop train and pray. We've got so many government programs that train and pray they'll be good. Train and pray they'll get a job. This is, you don't get paid unless they're in jobs. Cool? 47 of the 50 are in there. There's a wonderful article in Info Security called All You Need to Know About Her Majesty's Government Cyber Retraining Academy. And it's just a brilliantly written article. It really digs into how it worked. But the red one matters. What enabled the people on the upper left to do okay? Come on. What? Attitude. No. Attitude doesn't help. No. Which training? The basics. What made it possible was before they tried to teach them security, they made sure they knew how to do things in Linux, how to do things in the hardware, how to do things in the network. I don't mean to answer a question about the network. I mean hands-on, do things on the network so that they are people who you want to hire. Make sense? And the journalist, who you'll read about in the article that you don't know, is now working for BAE Systems as a cyber person. So 47 of the 51 are employed. The 4 dropped out before the end. This is 100% success. And it's just fascinating. So don't, please, if you're ever in a role where it matters, where a lot of us are in roles where the people we're producing don't matter. But if you're in a place where it actually matters, don't ever do anything in cybersecurity until they've learned the basics. First of all, it's dangerous. It is like making a surgeon who doesn't know anatomy. It's just plain dangerous. And they will do the wrong thing with the data you give them. So please don't. All right. So, this is the thing. This is the new Essentials course. Just to give you a sense of what's in it, those are modules: computer hardware, Linux and Windows, networking, programming, common attacks, and other stuff, Kali and Google and stuff like that good security people know. 46 modules, 46 quizzes, 46 tests, and a final exam that'll tell you whether or not I'm somebody you want to hire. All right? So you all talk about this is sort of good. I'm going to finish, is that right? Yeah, I'm going to finish with, I'll go to this one and come back. The UK put $25 million into making the game and that course available to all the kids. All of them. In England, not in Wales or Scotland, but all the kids in England. And they had 22,400 in the game right now. This is only 3 months in, and it's a 4-year project, and they have 6,300 going through the course right now. And why would they do that? Because they need the elite talent. And they're willing to create a phenomenal pipeline that's this wide to get the 600 people who can protect the nation. And you're not going to get them if you try to find them. So if you want them, you got to go wide. And that just gets us back to lessons. Academies still work. They can, the upper left can work if you finish the essentials. The surprise is you don't have to be a techie geek to be good at this. I'm not even sure, this is what we're going to test the next 6 months, that people who are techie geeks are better at this than other people. Meaning this may not be techie geek world. Techie geek may be a technique. This may be the way the brains work. And certain brains work well in this and other brains don't, and they might not right now be techie geeks. They might be musicians and they might be astronomers. So we're going to find out. I'll tell you at the end how, but we're going to find out. So I did that. All right. I'm going to skip that. Actually, no, I'm not. Do you know Matt Loeb, ISACA, the head of ISACA? He gets up at a nice conference and he says, you know, we just finished a survey and 75% of all the people our employers are interviewing are what does he call it? Not prepared for employment. They need hands-on skills. That's a guy who's been teaching not hands-on for all our lives. So at least the world has kind of come around to, oh, you can't do this stuff without the hands-on skills, all right? And I told you about Brian Krebs. Okay, so we've been experimenting with some of these things for about 4 years in the United States. First one is, can you take people who are not now cyber people but have some natural talent and make them cyber people and get them employed? And the place we invested our money was in veterans. So we've built a program called Vet Success. That's the guy at the Air Force who helped us do it, and that's that last president's wife congratulating him. It's sort of the only program that gets people a living wage out of the veterans kind of program. But look at the one in the middle. It's my favorite quote from this program. I had he said 3 job offers ranging from 35 to 50,000. I got accepted to Vet Success, and I had 3 new job offers between 70,000 and 90,000 before I finished the program. That's cool if you're a veteran. That's the difference between crappy life and okay life. So we're doing a lot more. And now we've got companies like NTT and Walmart and Discover and a bunch of others sponsoring these intense academies. And we use the same testing thing, sort of the same one that we use in England. It's a little bit different. But it's the same idea, which means you can actually put out some cool people. So we're talking to the Veterans Administration right now about, hey, instead of looking elsewhere, why don't you look inside? You might have some real talent inside, and you can certainly do a program with veterans at least. All right. Then we got 7 states, 3 governors and 4 other people in the states to announce a project, a test project in the United States called the CyberStart Pilot. They announced in July. The kids played during August. It was open to students 16 years old and older, free access, $650,000 in scholarships, 3,500 people signed up in the first 21 days, and 91% of those people who had not considered cyber before they played said we are definitely considering it as a career option afterwards. It's the first time we got the idea that maybe this wasn't just people who are already interested, maybe this is a conversion tool. Maybe this is the beginning of, oh, this works. But only 7% were young women. And when we talked to the women, they said, it's not fair. You walk into any Cisco class in our high school or our college, and it's 30 boys. And they're getting pre-trained. It's not a fair thing. So we got 15 governors to do, I'm going to skip that one. No, I'm not. Let me go backwards. This is Governor McAuliffe's report. He had 2,000 kids sign up, 843 qualified for the advanced sort of stuff, 62 won scholarships. The notes he got were breathtaking. Do I have a couple of them? Yeah. Look at the top one and look at the bottom 2. Got a high school girl who just learned it, and a kid in college who was learning to decode strip, to reverse engineer strip binaries. It's a game. But it's a game where if you are that person, it'll take you long, long distances. If you're not, you'll hate it, and you'll go do something else. McCullough said, Alan, I don't get notes like this. I get notes from people who hate me, and I get notes from people who want money from me. Which is why it wasn't really hard to get 15 governors to sign up for the girls program, right? Notes like that, kind of cool. 16 governors, including Maryland, 6,600 girls. It was increasing at 500 a day when we cut it off because the game was scheduled at a certain point. We had to validate they really were girls. There were some who weren't. They really were high school people. A lot who weren't. Oh, cool game, I want to play. But so we cut it off at 654. I'm going to make 5 quick statements that should be unbelievable to you. Meaning, if you were me 8 months ago and somebody said this to me, I'd say you're just blowing smoke. One is, it motivates interest in cybersecurity and STEM. So not cybersecurity alone, but computer science and other STEM. 2, it finds talent even where they didn't think they were capable. That's important. 3, it delights people who are curious and tenacious, which is the people we all search for in our employment interviews. The field manual and the tips let you use it anywhere. So rural kids could use it, inner city kids could use it. You didn't need a teacher who was smart about this stuff. It's an anywhere tool, and it teaches you the foundation. So let me prove those. This is the reason we know. I gave you this thank you note. So look inside. These are the actual quotes from real girls and real teachers. I'm just going to show you 1 or 2. First of all, 36% of the girls had an interest in cybersecurity before they played. 70% had an interest in a career in cybersecurity after they played. 6 days. Tell me something else that works like that. See what I mean by faster radio, small screen, what's the other? Batteries. Somebody's going to put this together and do something cool with it, right? So, and then the top one is important because of the last 2 words. The top quote on the right, we read it 2 or 3 times and nobody saw it, and then we said, oh my God, look at that. What are the last 2 words? Not cybersecurity, is it? So the girls and their teachers don't think of this as security. They think of it as computer science being cool. A reason to think computer science is a cool thing. Isn't that a wonderful finding, right? It finds talent even if they weren't capable. Take a second to read this one. If you're a teacher, that sort of makes you feel good. If you're not a teacher, you actually don't care. It's funny. There are a lot of people who look at that and go, yeah, well, all right, huh? It's fine. Tenacious. Look at this is one of my smiles. The last weekend was the first 2 days of their vacation. Cool? And I think the last one is rural. Yeah, my students were able to participate, something they would have no knowledge of in our rural area. At first, they didn't think they could figure it out. By the end, they were yelling and jumping up and down as they finished a challenging session. They were so sad, time ran out. Tenacious, curious, sort of finds it. Okay, last sort of story. The winners went to the Women in Cybersecurity Conference and were recognized there in Chicago about a month ago. And I happened to be in the Cisco suite. They don't have booze there, they have chocolate. In fact, Google's suite had a whole wall of bacon. This is much better than the stuff we get at the suites at our conferences, right? I was there at the table with the girls from the Padua Academy in New Jersey, in Delaware, and they had been 7th in the nation. And there was 2 juniors and a sophomore in the middle. I said, did you do to win, did you separate it into areas, or did you all try all the problems to see who could get it faster? And they said, we separated in areas. And I looked at the sophomore and I said, which area is yours? And she said, Linux. And I'm thinking, Linux, sophomore in high school. Interesting. And I said, how did you learn Linux? And she looked at me, if you're at my age, you've seen this a lot, as young people look at older people who don't have a clue. Right? Well, I learned it in the game. The game teaches you everything. This is a kid who didn't know Linux at all before she started, 7 days earlier. By the 6th day, they were the 7th team in the nation. Linux matters in this. I mean, you can get high scores, but you can't get really high scores unless you really know Linux. She learned it all in the game. So I like that story. Okay, what's next? Last part of this. So I gave you the thank you note. So if anybody says that's baloney, those are real quotes. I can actually get you, if you're in the right position, I can get you the names. There's a lot of privacy stuff. Get you the teachers, I can get you the students who said that, and it's fine. But I want to show you the other two handouts. Our goal, SAN's goal, and we're willing to pay for this, is to get 2 million kids to try this. So high school students, community college students, to find the 100,000 maybe, 150,000 who could be amazing at this. I'd like to do many more than 2 million, but 2 million is sort of enough for phase one. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to do about $40 million in scholarships. We already have 38% of that raised. Not at all worried about raising the money for the scholarships. And one of the places we're starting is in Maryland with Governor Hogan. They're going to announce, they've already funded scholarships for 80 kids in their program. It's called, it hasn't been announced yet. It will be announced in the next couple weeks. It's called Maryland Cyber Fast Track. But it's every kid in every community college in the state. They all can play the game. If they do really well in the game, they all can take that online course. If they do really well in the course, I really love this one. Is there a, oh, that wasn't what I wanted. Which one does a beam? See this one? The employers, we have 16 Maryland employers, and we have 3 of the big Silicon Valley employers who love this program. They're going to interview the students before they get into the scholarships. So they will help us decide who gets the Maryland scholarships. Because if you're a kid and you got a company saying, if you can get through this program, you're going to be near the top of my list, it changes the whole motivation of how hard you study. Because there's something real at the other end of that, especially if it's a company. We've got Geico, we've got Khaki, we've got, these are some of the Maryland guys. I don't remember, but they're real names they've heard of. And the Silicon Valley ones are amazing. I'm not allowed to say them yet until the governor announces it. But anyway, so that's one. But on a larger scale, every high school and every community college in the country will have this poster up. That's why I wanted to give you the poster. It's way too small to read. But it's called The 10 Coolest Jobs in Cybersecurity. And if you read it, and apparently if you read it and you're a kid, you go, I could do that. This could be interesting. And then it shows them how they're going to play the game, they're going to take the course, they're going to get some advanced training, and their jobs at the other end of that. So this is what we're hoping to do. These are all little pieces. We have no idea whether any of this is going to work. I'm acting like, oh, this is going to work. I have no clue whether this will work. But the tools, the pieces that we're trying to put together, they look like they work as individual pieces. Looks like the game really finds the kids and motivates them. Looks like the course really prepares people. Looks like the training puts people, a lot of those guys in the upper right, 4 of the employers said these are the best employees I have ever hired. Not the best employees I've ever had, because those are senior, but the best employees I've ever hired. Those are the upper right people. So I'm not saying you're going to get that out of the upper left. But the pieces all work. So the last handout is something I'm hoping you'll help with. If you want to be one of the employers, if you're a Maryland employer, I guess it's okay if you want to, but if you want to be one of the employers who interviews the kids, that will help the governor get more kids into the program. If you think about it, if you're a cool place to work, and parents see that that's the kind of place that's going to interview my kid if he does well, it changes the dynamic about whether the kid's going to take the time to do it. Fair? So we kind of have enough, but we don't have enough cool ones. So if you work for a cool one, if you work for any of them, I didn't want to be, that's not me. Anyway, fill out the form and give it to me. We have 5 $50 Amazon gift certificates. We'll do a drawing tomorrow just so it becomes worth your while, because there's some information we want at the top. We want to know what you're finding you can hire right now in terms of those foundations. Because we've got some people saying, well, I train that, I teach that, and we're hearing from employers, we're not getting it. When we hire the people, they don't have it. And we're having to retrain them. So that's the other form. So I think I'm done. Are we done?